and welcome to another lawnfawn video. Today we are so excited to be introducing our stamp set I Love Eucalyptus Flip Flop and its coordinating dies. And this cute little stamp set is a flip flop, which means it's a mirror image of one of lawnfawn's favorite sets, which is I Love Eucalyptus. So these two little dies are so cute together. You can create cute scenes now that you have the mirror image option, and they kind of look like they're hugging each other, and we'll make that in a card later on in the video, and it looks so sweet. There's also a great new sentiment included in this set too. So we're going to go ahead and stamp that cute little koala out, and then he's got his little eucalyptus branch, and then this sentiment is so sweet. It says, "You are qualified for a hug," which is adorable. And now we're going to go ahead and use some Copic markers to add some color to these cute images. And I went ahead and colored this guy in the style of Tammy on our design team. I loved how she had colored him, and I decided to do something similar. And that's really fun to take a look at what your friend has colored, maybe something you've seen on the Lawnfawn blog, and use that as an inspiration for your coloring. So I copied where her highlights were and then started blending out. And one of the things that I loved that she did is she had it really dark around those edges, but very light towards the center. And I don't normally do that. So by looking at someone else's coloring, I was able to try something new, which is really fun. So we're going to blend out with a medium, and now take the light marker right up against that edge. So it's really like there's only a bit of that dark and medium marker towards the outside edge. For a little extra detail, I'm adding little tiny darts with my darkest marker. We'll add some pink to the cheeks and to the ears, and then we'll add some brown and green to that eucalyptus branch. These are the coordinating dies, which you can bend apart at the tabs or use your wire snips to separate. We're going to go ahead and take that die and line it up with our stamped image and hold it in place with some low-tack tape. We'll run that through the die cut machine, and now we'll have perfectly cut out images with this adorable little koala. Oh my goodness, like look at this little guy. And that eucalyptus branch, which you can use to help set the scene, or you can have him hold. Next up, Shari's going to create a really cute card with this guy. So take it away, Shari.
I'm going to be making a card with the new I Love Eucalyptus flip-flop, that little koala. But first I want to create the background for my card, and I've got a piece of kraft cardstock for my card base, and I'm going to use the new plaid stencil to make a soft background on this card base using some distress oxides. Distress oxides are pigment inks, so they're going to show up differently on this kraft cardstock than a water-based ink. And I'm using some softer colors. I've got dried marigold here that I'm going to do the large lines of the plaid with. And you can see it just gives a subtle color to that background. It's not going to be anything too bright and crazy. I also don't really need to worry about the center of this card because it's going to be covered up by a panel with my cute little koala. So you can see I've kind of left the middle with no ink just to save myself some time. And then I'm just going to turn this 90 degrees and put it back down with my magnets and ink it in the other direction with that same dried marigold ink. So you're going to get this almost tone-on-tone look because this dried marigold is not much different in color than the kraft. So you can see you get that subtle look. And then I'm going to go in with the other stencil, the thin lines. Get that stuck down with my magnets. And for this one, I'm going to be using a green color. So I'm going in with cracked pistachio. Again, it's still a light color, but you're going to get this really cool look, this kind of chalky effect with this ink on that kraft background. So once I've got it all inked up, I'm going to pull that off and I'm going to turn it 90 degrees so I can do my thin stripes in the other direction. So I'm just adding the ink to those lines in the other direction, and when I pull this away, you're going to see this really subtle plaid on that card base. I wanted to add some texture to this, so of course I'm going to add some gold watercolor splatters and speckles to the background. So I'm just going to get that watercolor nice and soupy and just flick that paint around my background with my paintbrush. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. I'm not quite done with my background, but while that watercolor dries, I'm going to work on the panel. So I've got this cute koala that I've already colored and cut out with the coordinating dies. I've also cut out one of the birch tree dies with some chocolate bar cardstock for him to grab hold of. And then I'm using the sentiment in this new little mini set that says, "You are qualified for a hug," which I just think is so cute. So I'm stamping that in that top right corner because my tree and my koala are going to kind of go to the left. So I'm just going to add some liquid glue to that and line it up nice and straight. It's going to overhang on the top, but I can trim that off with my scissors. And then I'm going to finish up my card base background. I'm using my panel as a guide, and I'm going in with the little eucalyptus branch and leaves that are part of this stamp set, and I'm using some Lucky Clover Distress Oxide, which is a little bit darker green than that pistachio that I use for the stripes. And I'm just adding that image around, basically creating my own pattern paper. So I think this is a really cool way to kind of pull those little images in and stretch them and make them go really far in your card design. So once I have that filled in the way I want it, I can put my panel onto my card. I've already put the foam tape on the back, and I'm just going to center that up in this plaid background that I've created. Now I can add my little koala that I'm putting some foam tape on. This is the thin foam squares, so it's not popped up quite as much since I already have some foam behind the whole panel. And I'm just going to put him like he's holding on to the tree, just right below my sentiment. And then I've also colored and cut out a few of those eucalyptus branches, and I'm just going to add those to the tree and make this a eucalyptus tree. I know it's not a eucalyptus tree, but we can make it a eucalyptus tree. So I'm adding 2 of those to the little branches that stick out, and then I'm just going to add the third below to balance everything out. And then finally, to fill in that kind of empty space in the bottom right corner, I'm adding a couple of little die cut hearts that are cut from some guava cardstock. And then here's my finished card, and I just think he is so adorable, and I love that background with that gold shimmer.
That card is so cute, Shari. I love that background so much. So next up, I'm going to create a card using both of the koalas. So we're going to ink a background here, and we're using Twisted Citron, Mowed Lawn, and Evergreen Bough. And this color combo is so pretty. And I'm recreating a card by Tammy, and it's absolutely stunning. It was so much fun to recreate this card. And I loved this color combo of greens. It's so pretty and a perfect match for our cute little I Love Eucalyptus koala. So I'm ink blending between those two, going back and forth between the two colors to create a nice seamless blend. And then once we have those all blended together looking really nice, we're going to add some splatters. I'm going to do that by picking my darkest color, which was the Evergreen Bough. I'm going to smear that onto my little craft mat here. We'll add a little bit of water, mix it up with a paintbrush, and then tap the paintbrush to create splatters. And that's going to give a really nice detail onto the card. It just makes it look a little more special. Now here you can see my 2 koalas from both I Love Eucalyptus sets, and they're going to be adorable together on this card. And then Tammy brought in a throwback, and that is our Critters Down Under stamp set. I haven't used this stamp set in a really long time, and it was so nice to use it. We're going to use that eucalyptus tree in the set, and we're actually going to be cutting it apart. So I went ahead and stamped and colored 3 of these so that we can mix and match these together. Now, I've taken out the Sending Big Hugs die because, well, one, this die is like my new favorite die ever. I'm going to use it all the time, and I think it's super, super cute with these koalas. So we went ahead and die cut that from some spiffy speckles paper with those nice green splatters on it, and also die cut it from some storm cloud cardstock. We'll add some liquid glue to the back of the pattern paper piece, and we're going to layer that over the dark gray piece, creating a really cool shadow. So I'm just offsetting it just a little bit. And how cool does that look? I think it just makes it pop in this really, really cool way. And so we're going to repeat the same idea with the dots for the eyes. So we have the big dot for the word big, and then the little dot for the top there. And we're going to layer those two just so that everything is nice and seamless and looks good together. Next, we're going to create some great layers for this card. And so I've die cut the largest outside in stitched rectangle from some white cardstock, and then we're going to layer this other stitched rectangle right on top, and it's going to give it this really cool white border with an extra stitching detail. And then we're going to cut a standard size card base at 5.5 by 4.25 and layer that with some kraft cardstock. And so I really love this color combo because it really evokes the look of the eucalyptus trees with the brown and the green. So we're going to layer that right on top. Next up, we're going to start layering all our stamped and die cut pieces. So I went ahead and cut that piece there with my scissors, that eucalyptus tree apart, and we're going to use these different pieces by layering them behind the koala. So I'm going to use one half of the tree behind one koala and then the other half of the tree by the other. And I'm just adding some tape runner on the back to secure those down. And then we're going to take more of these trees and kind of cut them apart. So I'm going to cut them in half, cut the leaves off, and just have lots of different pieces, and we're going to tuck them in and around the Sending Big Hugs die. And that's one of my favorite ways to use this die, is to die cut and kind of layer behind other images, whether it might be die cut leaves like we're doing here, or cute little characters like the tiny friends would be adorable kind of poking out from behind the letters, or maybe some of your favorite cute critters you can kind of tuck behind there. So it's really fun to kind of add decoration to these big die cut sentiments. Next up, we're going to add the dot to the eye, and this is the moment where I realized I don't know where the dot to the smaller dot for the eye went. I ended up having to die cut again because I just couldn't find it. So I added just that big one for now, and then we're going to layer on the rest of our characters. And so I've put these koalas really close to each other so that it looks like they're hugging, which is so sweet. Next up, we're going to use the sentiment from the flip-flop stamp set. So I'm adding an anti-static powder tool coating to some black cardstock so that I can stamp in some nice, clear, sticky embossing ink and sprinkle on some white heat embossing powder. And that anti-static powder tool is going to help us keep the white embossing powder from sticking to anything but that sentiment. We'll tap off the excess, and then we're going to take our heat gun and heat it up for a nice, bright, white, shiny sentiment. Then I'm going to take my paper trimmer and just trim this down so that there's just a nice thin little black border all the way around the sentiment. And so that's going to look really nice with that shadow that we put behind those letters. We'll add some tape runner around that and kind of layer that right on this die cut. So I love that you can actually add another sentiment by just layering it right underneath, right at the bottom of that word big. I went ahead and die cut another dot for the eye and added that to the top, and now the card is done. It's so cute and so much fun. Thank you so much for this beautiful design, Tammy. You are incredible. Next up, we have some cards by the design team, and first up, I'm going to show you the card that Shari made earlier in that video. The plaid background, I love so much how she incorporated a small stamped image into it. I think that's so cool, and I can't wait to try that, and this little scene is just so sweet. Here, Audrey created a similar scene with those awesome trees kind of popping out from behind a watercolor background, and the two koalas hanging out is so adorable. I love these two together. Next, Elise created a custom sentiment by bringing in some letter die cuts, and I love the "You are quality friend." Oh my goodness, how sweet is that? It cracks me up, and those two little koalas on either side of it are just perfect. This card here by Lynette is so sweet, and I love how she used the Just Stitching scallop circle to highlight her adorable koala. And here, Mindy incorporated a magic iris into her really sweet koala scene. And you can see as you open up the magic iris, that's where we have that awesome sentiment. And it's so cute with the "Thanks for all you do. You are qualified for a hug." I think that's absolutely adorable. So we can't wait to see what you guys do with the I Love Eucalyptus flip-flop. So make sure to share it with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye.